What's going on, everyone? Today we are taking a look at a new commuter e-bike. This is the Velotric Discover 2. So I have not tested out the bike yet, but just from building it and looking it over, I can see this has so many unique features and small touches. So if this bike performs as good as I think it will, this will definitely be one of the best, if not the best, commuter e-bike of 2024. Alright, so this bike comes in a few different colors, but as you can see, the one I have here is in gray. Very nice looking color, but my favorite part about it is that it's a glossy finish. Not many bikes have glossy paint because it's cheaper and easier to do matte paint, but as you can see, this has a very nice gloss to it. It also looks very professionally done. It looks comparable to what you would get on a nice car. So before we dive into the general specifications, there's a few key features on this bike that really separate it from everything else out there. First off, both the bike and battery are UL listed. There's a lot of e-bikes out there, and unfortunately, a lot of them are low quality. So if you look around at reviews, you'll see things like the battery stops working, the frame cracks, and so on and so on. But this one was put through a whole bunch of different tests. There's even a whole page on their website that shows you everything they did to it. So with this bike, they not only tell you it's good quality, but they also have the proof to back it up as well. Next, this bike has built-in Apple Find My. A lot of people put AirTags in their bike so they can track them if it gets stolen. But the problem with that, all the thief has to do is look around, they'll find the tag. But with this one, it's built inside the bike. So if someone steals your bike, you can easily track it from the app and locate and find where it's at. I don't have an iPhone to test this out, but definitely a great security feature to be built into the bike. Last but not least, this whole entire bike is waterproof. The frame itself is rated IPX6, and then even the battery is IPX7, which means the entire battery can be submerged in up to 3 feet of water. This is not something I have seen on any other e-bike. This means you can ride the bike through rain, snow, a snowstorm, rainstorm. No normal everyday condition is going to harm this bike. And besides that, a popular question people always have is, how do I wash my e-bike? And a lot of manufacturers, their bikes aren't that waterproof, so they always say to wipe it down with a rag or something like that. But this one, you can hose it down, you can blast it with a power washer, and then, like I said, you can even submerge the whole entire bike and the battery inside water, and no harm is going to happen to it. All right, so going over some of the bike specifications, as you can see here, this is a step-through e-bike, and it has a very, very low 15-inch step-through height, so that's a very small step. As you can see here, it's just a little step over. No effort at all. So even if you're old or if you have leg problems, this is going to be a great bike for you. I'm not even that old, but personally, after I tried step-through e-bikes, there's no way I'm going back to a regular bike. These are just so much easier to get on and get off. This bike has a torque sensor. If you're not familiar with what this is, basically there's two kinds of e-bikes out there. There's torque sensor and there's cadence sensor. With a torque sensor, basically it's a fixed speed. So if you put it on pedal assist 1 and you pedal a little bit or a lot, it's still going to give you the same amount of speed. But with the torque sensor, if you pedal a little bit, it'll give you a little power. Then if you pedal harder, it'll give you more power. So it's much more comparable to a regular bike experience. Coming to the back, we have a 750 watt motor with a peak of 1100 watts, and this has 75 Newton meters of torque. As you can see here, this is a Velotric motor. So this is a motor that was made proprietary for this bike. A lot of bikes out there just get whatever motor off the shelf and slap it on their bike. But since this one has a motor that was made and tuned specifically for this bike, this is going to give you better performance and also make it more quiet as well. Coming to the other side, we have Tektro hydraulic brakes with 180 millimeter rotors. Looking at the tires, we have Kenda puncture resistant tires, and the size on these is 25.5 by 2.4 inches. Powering the bike, we have a 48 volt 14.7 amp hour battery. And I love how this is painted to match the bike. From a distance, you can't even see the batteries there. It just blends into the frame very well. Another thing I really like about this battery is how it's mounted from the top. I've tried a lot of different e-bikes, and this is by far the best place to mount it. Typically, the downside to this is you see the black box here. But again, this is paint matched, so you kind of get the best of both worlds of not being able to see the battery much, but also the convenience of being able to take it out and insert it very easily without any struggle. So definitely like that. As you can see here, the bike has a front fork suspension, and this is a hydraulic suspension with a lockout and 80 millimeters of travel. Taking a look at the lights, we have a built-in front headlight, and this is the first time I've seen the headlight mounted on the bars like that. Looks very cool and unique. The light does have a large projector lens, so it looks like we should have a good amount of output. Coming to the back, we have a built-in tail light, which also lights up when you brake as well. And then at the side, we also have built-in turn signals, which also have very good brightness. As you can see here, the bike also includes fenders, and these are metal fenders. You also get an included rear rack, and this has a maximum load of 66 pounds. Coming up to the bars, we have a 8-speed Shimano shifter. Coming to the other side, you have your controller, an included bell, and then you have this thumb throttle here. Very unique looking thumb throttle. This is the first time I have ever seen a thumb throttle like this on any e-bike. And then hidden under the controller, you also have a built-in USB-C port, so you can charge your phone and other devices while you ride as well. Coming to the center, this bike does include an adjustable handlebar stem, so you can adjust that to get your preferred riding position. And then last but not least, we have the screen in the middle, which is a very good quality 3.5-inch screen. Definitely one of the best screens I've seen so far, as this looks comparable to what you would see on a cell phone screen. Looking up top, you got your battery percentage, your ride mode, your pedal assist mode, your speed, and then on here you also have some trip information. One thing I really love about this screen is how much settings they have built into it. So this bike is app connected, so you can go on the app and change a lot of things. But if you don't want to use the app, you don't have to, and you can change pretty much everything about this bike right here on the screen. So looking through all the settings, first thing we have is reset trip data. We have riding mode, which is, there's 3 different modes on this bike. There's boost, trail, and eco. Basically, this is 3 different tunes basically. So not only do you have pedal assist 1 through 5, you also have those 3. So that gives you a total of 15 different levels you can ride on. Below that, you have speed limit. At first, I unlocked this and the bike was still locked to 20, which is very, very common with a lot of e-bikes. It unlocked the top speed of the bike, but not the throttle. But one thing I really love that I found later on is it also gives you the ability to unlock the throttle as well. So once I turned off that throttle limited, now the throttle can also go top speed. Going back to the rest of the settings, you have screen brightness, auto power off. So this one you can set the bike to turn off after a certain amount of time. You have auto lights. So this will detect when it's dark out and automatically turn on your headlight for you. You got rear light mode. Again, another setting I have not seen in any other e-bike. There's just so many customizations they allow you on this bike. You can have the light steady while you ride and light up when you brake. You can have it flashing while you ride and light up when you brake. Or you could have it steady while you ride and then light up and also flash when you brake. So cool to have that as well. This bike has cruise control. If you're new at e-bikes, I highly recommend leaving that off to start with because it's something that could catch you off guard. But as you get more experience, definitely turn that on. All right, so now that we got all the main things out of the way, one thing I want to say is I've tried out and reviewed tons of bikes at this point. And when I was building this bike and looking it over, I noticed a lot of little unique but good little details that I really like on this bike. So one of those is this recessed keyhole. A lot of bikes have a big silver plate here, and that's the keyhole. It's very apparent. You can see it very easily. As you can see, this one is recessed in there. You can't even see it from the outside. It just looks like a little hole. Definitely looks a lot cleaner versus the normal large keyhole sticking on the outside. Over here, we have the charger port. Typically, this is a little rubber flap that you got to pull out and then push back into a little hole. But as you can see here, this one is spring loaded. Another little detail I have not seen on any other e-bike, makes it a lot more convenient. Just open it up, put your charger in. Once you pull the charger out, automatically closes on its own. You never have to worry about leaving it open or water accidentally getting in there. So a lot of e-bikes have similar shaped batteries like this one. You kind of just got to grab it and carry it around like that. A little awkward at times. But as you can see, this one has a built-in handle. I've seen batteries that have built-in handles, but I've never seen one on a battery that goes inside the frame. Again, it's something minor that most e-bike owners might not notice, but it shows me that Velotric really thought about all the little things to make everything a lot easier for the customer. Last but not least, the bike weighs 63 pounds, has a maximum carrying capacity of 440 pounds, and can tow up to a very impressive 880 pounds. All right, so this is by far the easiest e-bike I have pedaled so far. Right now I have the motor off and there is very little resistance on this bike. I'm gonna say this is about 85 to 90% similar to riding a regular non-e-bike. It's just a very smooth and easy pedaling experience. Overall, most commuter e-bikes are very easy to pedal, which is one thing I really like about them, because if the motor is off, it still feels like a regular bike. But this one is hands down one of the easiest I've tried so far. Another thing I just noticed is this is a very quiet bike. I do have the motor off right now, but just pedaling this, I barely hear the chain at all. The tires are very quiet. Overall, it just feels like a really good built bike. Velotric, it's a pretty new brand. They've only been out for, I don't know, 2-3 years now maybe. And with e-bike brands, you never really know how they're gonna end up. Some of them just make generic bikes and they come and go. But Velotric is one of those brands that came in swinging. They had very unique bikes that were unique to them. Now they have this model here, and it's safe to say that they're definitely one of the leading e-bike brands now. They started out with just online, but now you can actually find their bikes in a lot of retail bike shops as well. A lot of these big brands seem to be doing kind of the same things, just different models, different specifications, but I like that Velotric is kind of stepping out of the box and coming out with their own things, like the built-in Apple Find My, and then the completely waterproof bike and battery, which again is not something I've seen before. Testing out the suspension here on the sidewalk, and it definitely has good absorption in the front, but it doesn't have a rear suspension, so you definitely feel all the cracks and bumps traveling up to the seat. But you can just add a $100 seat post, and that'll make it very comparable to a full suspension e-bike and take out a lot of those bumps that you feel from the seat. I'm not sure how I feel about this thumb throttle yet. I like that it has lots of modulation, so you can easily feather it and go slow. You can put it medium, go a little faster, and then push it all the way and go the quickest. With your typical thumb throttle, they usually have very little modulation. It's very close to just basically on and off, but this, you have a lot of play in it, so it definitely feels good as far as that goes. My only concern is riding this full throttle. I feel like I gotta push my thumb in a lot more. So I don't know how it's gonna be long range. I guess I don't really ride full throttle that long anyway, so it shouldn't be an issue. But if you're someone who rides holding down the throttle the entire time, then you definitely might get a sore thumb just from holding that for quite a while. Then again, I take that back. This bike does have cruise control, so as long as you turn that on, I guess there's really no reason for you to hold it down the entire time anyway. So in the end, I guess this thumb throttle is better than the standard thumb throttle after all. Got tired of pedaling, so I went ahead and put the pedal assist on. I really like that this has 15 levels of speed assist, so it has 1 through 5. But then when you click this little button right down here, there's a mode here. So there's Eco, Trail, and Boost mode. It's basically 3 different programs of the 1 through 5. So if you're on Eco, the 1 through 5 is lower, a little less torquey. Medium is more torque, and then finally Boost, you'll get the most torque on all 5. So nice to have that there. I've seen some e-bikes that have 9 steps of pedal assist, but I think I prefer this a lot better as it gives you more modulation, but also gives you a better idea of what you're going to be doing as well. Personally, I think I'll probably leave it on Boost most of the time, as I do like that faster torque. It just feels a lot more fun that way. Haven't tested out the top speed yet, but throttle definitely feels nice and smooth. I like that this bike feels like it has a proper tuning as well. A lot of cheaper e-bikes, you hit the throttle and it just kind of boost you from 0 to 100 and just keeps pushing that way until it reaches the speed limit. But this one, I feels like it has a really smooth takeoff, and as you get higher up in the speed, that's when it starts giving you more torque. So it makes that initial starting a lot more smooth, and it's just a much easier and more comfortable experience to deal with. All right, I'm gonna leave it on Boost mode and try out these torque sensor speeds. This is gonna vary a lot rider to rider because it really does depend on how much power you're putting in. And a cool thing right here, it actually shows you a representation of what you're doing as well and how much power it's putting out. So you can see right now, putting a little harder, and it's showing that graph of how much power is being put out. Go to number 2, very smooth. I've tested some torque sensors where it kind of feels like a cadence sensor, kind of feels like on and off, and it's kind of a rough experience that doesn't really deliver that torque experience that most people want in a bike. But this is definitely a very smooth sensor. This is a motor that was tuned by their company, so I guess that's to be expected. All right, one thing I'm gonna say is I'm typically not a fan of torque sensor bikes because a lot of them I try do have that kind of rough start and go, but this is, I feel like I'm praising this bike a lot. It might sound like I'm shilling this bike, but I'm really not. I just really like this bike, and yeah, this feels like one of the smoothest torque sensors I have tried on any bike so far. It's just a very natural response. When I start pedaling and it starts giving me assists, I don't feel any jolts of the motor actually turning on or off. It almost feels like I'm doing it all by myself, but obviously the bike is helping me. It's just a very natural experience, and I'm on boost mode, which would make you think that it might give you that unwanted jolt, but between start and go, it's a very, very smooth start, and then it kind of smoothly and it ramps up as you pedal more. All right, so I'm not gonna try out every pedal assist level. As I said earlier, it is gonna vary based on your input. Well, let's go ahead and try out number 5, which is the top speed. 29.6. Ooh, reached all the way up to 30, and the best part is I was still very, very connected with the bike. I was not ghost pedaling at all. So this definitely has the proper size chain rings on it. Let's go ahead and test this out. Throttle only. Should be about the same as the pedal assist. Catching a lot of wind. All right, too much wind, only got up to 27.5. Let's go ahead and try it the other way, see if we can get a little higher. Pedal assist or throttle, once again, very smooth acceleration, very smooth takeoff. Even going faster, this bike feels very stable, still very smooth. Sometimes going a little quicker, these bikes can feel a little sketchy and unsafe, but still very good. All right. Throttle only, I was able to reach about 28.3. I think that's the most I saw on there. Like I said, it is pretty windy, so that might be limits me a little bit. But I think under perfect conditions where there isn't much wind, you should be able to reach the same 30 miles per hour. I am definitely happy that this bike has the ability to unlock the throttle as well. There are so many good e-bikes out there, but I just hate it when they cap the throttle off at 20 miles per hour. If I'm paying to get 750 watts of power or whatever it might be, I want to be able to use that with the throttle as well. Like, I do understand that's the legal limit, that's where it's supposed to stay at, but I mean, I like having the option to unlock it, and if I get in trouble, yeah, that's on me, I guess. But you know, you don't sell someone a 400 horsepower car and then say, oh, for legal limits we're only going to let you use 200. You know, that's kind of a strange approach, but thankfully this bike does not have that problem. All right, last thing left on this bike, let's go ahead and try out the brakes. Stop, absolutely no problem at all. Even fishtailed my rear tire a little bit. Perfect, just great brakes. That completely checks off all of my tests I do with any bike, and this bike checks every single box. The price is right, the specifications are right, the suspension feels good, the speed is good, the torque is good. Everything on this bike is just very well made. 5 stars for Velotric. Hands down, the best commuter e-bike that I've tried so far. One thing I'll mention real quick, and I guess I can call this a little e-bike pro tip, is I feel like when a lot of manufacturers are out to make a better e-bike, they at least put this better shifter here. But I feel like a lot of times they're trying to cut corners, and I'm often right. After I test the bike, it usually doesn't perform as good as I think it would. They often have that Shimano turning, which is like the cheapest bottom of the barrel shifter. It just looks very ugly. It has no business being on an e-bike. Might be true, might not, but in my experience, when they have something besides that turning shifter and they put a little more effort into that area, the bike usually ends up being a little better as well. Overall, if you happen to be shopping for a commuter style e-bike like this one, hands down, don't even look at anything else out there. Don't even bother comparing it. This bike could be $500 more and it'll still be completely worth it, because I do think the bike is that good. So again, if you happen to be looking for a commuter style e-bike, I would 100% recommend this one here. I have no complaints about it. Just an absolute 5 stars, 2 thumbs up from me on this bike. All right, well, that about wraps up this video. As usual, if you have any questions at all, feel free to drop me a comment and let me know. Otherwise, thanks for watching, and I'll see you all next time.